Hi, this is Ed from the Dado Codes. So in our previous video, we talked about the uses of local storage, and in this video, we'll be implementing local storage directly into our application. So let me just clean up the code before we start. Now let's head to the index.html page, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button. So open angular brackets, button, close angular brackets. Then we're going to put in save data. Now we will be putting in some functions here so that this save data button can call. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our JavaScript file. And here I'm just going to put in some comments just to split up the other functions from these new functions that we will be creating in this video. So here, what we'll be doing is we'll be writing some functions that utilize local storage. And there are a few methods that we can use from local storage. So one of the first methods that you can use is the .getItem function. And this accepts a key. And what this does is the key that you pass in, it will return the value of that key. The second method that we know of is the setItem method, and this accepts a key and a value. And what this does is it takes your key and then it takes your value and then it assigns that value to the key, so that later on when you call the getItem and then pass that key into that method, the getItem method, it will return the value that you saved. The third method that we know of is the removeItem method, and this accepts a key. So now when you pass in a key to be removed, local storage will remove that key and that value from its data. The final method that we have is the .clear method, and what this does is it just removes all the keys and all the associated values with them from data. So back to our JavaScript file. So we are going to be creating many functions, and I'm just going to write them out quickly now. So the first function we'll be creating is the function getTodo, open and close parentheses, and open the squiggly brackets. We'll be passing in the parameters into the parentheses and the code into the squiggly brackets later on. We're just going to be writing the functions out first of all. The second function we're going to do is function saveTodo, open parentheses and open the squiggly brackets as well. The third function that we're going to do is function removeTodo, open and close parentheses, open and close squiggly brackets. So let's work on the getTodo function first. And this one, as we remember from the PowerPoint presentation, what we're going to do is we're going to be getting the value based on the key that we pass in. Now for this video, I am going to hard code the ID. And the ID that I want to use for the entire video is Todolist-1. This will just make explaining this video easier. So within the getTodo function, we're going to make it return the value of the key that we want to call. So I'm going to type in return. Then to use local storage, you have to enter in local storage dot getItem, open parentheses, and you can use apostrophes or the backticks, Todolist-1, and close it off. So now this function, when it calls the key Todolist-1, it should return any value associated with it. Next, we're going to go to the saveTodo function, and here what we want to do is we want to save a value to a key. Just for this video, we're not using the parentheses at the moment, as things are a little bit hard coded. So over here, we're just going to say local storage dot setItem, open parentheses. Now I'm going to put in the key, which is Todolist-1. Again, you can use backticks or apostrophes. And now we need to figure out how we are going to pass this value, how we're going to get this value to save to this key. If we think about our application right now, our values are associated with the input text element. that is associated with the to-do list code. So we need that value of whatever to-do that we put in or enter in. One way to do this would be to access that element. And in this video, I want to access that element by its class attribute. So we are going to give it a class. So let's go and find that code, which is just here. And just after where we say input, I'm going to put in an attribute class is equals to, and we're going to be using a new class name, which I'm going to call to-do class. Now this is similar to when we were getting the element by an ID, and this time we're getting an element by the class. As I mentioned before, IDs are unique, and you can only have one unique ID in one application. But classes, you can have many classes attached to many elements, and as such, when you get an element by its class, you could get multiple elements. So in this case, if you wanted to get an element by its class name, you would use the code document.getElements, and that's plural, by class name. Open parentheses, and we're going to put in the class name of to-do class, and this should get us that input text element. But let's have a look and see what the console logs out. So I'm going to add some extra code here that says console.log document.getElementsByClassName to-do class. Now let's look at our browser, add a to-do, click on the Save Data button. So I did make one mistake. We need to add the onClick property to the Save Data button. So let's go back to the HTML index file, put in onClick equals to save to do, open and close brackets, and now this should work. And you can see in the console it shows that we have a HTML collection with an object, and the object is represented by the data in the squiggly brackets, and it says 0:HTML input element. And that HTML input element is that input text element for our to-do list. So our value is there. And in order to access that, we need to access the key of the object, which is 0. So back to our JavaScript file. So in order to access that value, what we're going to add to the class here is square brackets, 0, which refers to that key of 0, dot value. And I'm also going to console log out this as well, just to show you. So now if we reload the REPL application, we add a to-do, add in any to-do we want into the input field, and then click Save Data, and you'll see in the console.log that that value does appear, and that value is now saved to our local storage. So let's try and retrieve that data just to see what happens. Now for this application, I'm going to be using the getToDo function within the function that we use to create to-dos. So what I'm going to do is, just right here, I'm going to create a variable called toDoData. And I'm going to set it to the getToDo function. And if you remember from the getToDo function, it returns whatever's in local storage based on the key that you passed in. And our key is todolist-1. Next, I'm going to put this toDoData variable as part of the value of the input text element right about here. And we're going to be using template literals in order to show that. Have a think what would happen when we do create a to-do and there is a value associated with the key todolist-1. So let's reload the REPL application. I've already saved the data. So now if I click add to do, you'll see that the text that we put in for the to-do list appears now in the add to do. So finally, let's complete our remove to do functionality. And from the PowerPoint that we mentioned before, the method that we need to use is the removeItem method. So we're going to enter in local storage dot removeItem open parentheses, and the key that we're using for this video is todolist-1. Now the best place to call this remove to do function is within our onDelete function. So I'm just going to put it right here, just before the to-do list gets removed. And now if we reload our REPL application and we go back to add to do and click on the delete button, now reload the REPL application and click add to do again, we'll see that the input text element doesn't have that value anymore. And we can just try again, add to do and save data, and then reload our REPL application again and add to do. You'll see that the data appears. So this is great. We've got all three functions working. The only problem we have now is that we can only save one to do, and that's because we've hard-coded the key. So in our next video, we're going to be looking at how we can create different keys to save to our application and get that data back. So I hope to see you there. Thank you for watching. Take care. All the best.